Humpty Dumpty, how he fell with a roll and a rumble, and fell off like a doll of a crumple by the butt of the magazine wall.
Welcome to James Joyce's divine and delirious comedy, Finnegans Wake. In this episode, number 15, we'll hear Irish-Canadian actor and my good friend and colleague Richard Harte performing pages 69 to 74 to conclude Chapter 3 of Joyce's last novel. I'm Adam Seelig, the director of the reading you'll soon hear. I'm recording this episode on February 2nd of 2025, James Joyce's 143rd birthday. Happy birthday. On the last weekend of March of 2025, the Toronto Irish Film Festival will screen excerpts from our film of Finnegans Wake Chapter 3 at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival Theatres. We'll announce the details in early March through our mailing list and on our website, www.onelittlegoat.org. If you're in Toronto in late March, come join us. Finnegans Wake is a production of One Little Goat Theatre Company. For the next 5 years, One Little Goat will film and record all 17 chapters, roughly 30 hours, of Joyce's Finnegans Wake before live audiences in various locations, screening and releasing them along the way with the aim of completing the entire book in time for its 90th birthday, May the 4th of 2029. One Little Goat Theatre Company is an official charity in Canada and the United States. If you'd like to support our work, please visit us online at www.onelittlegoat.org to make a charitable donation. And if monetary support is not an option, you can still help this podcast by rating and reviewing it and by spreading the word. To get in touch, you'll find our email address on the One Little Goat Theatre Company website, and we'd love to hear from you. To dream is to go beyond yourself, but to go beyond yourself is impossible. So how about this? To dream is to go impossibly beyond yourself. Through the dream language of Finnegans Wake Chapter 3, our protagonist H.C. Earwicker runs away from confrontation and slander, but ultimately fails, as you'll soon hear in today's excerpt, when confrontation and slander come knocking, literally and figuratively, in the form of a newspaper reporter hurling insults and stones at Earwicker's door. I want to share a discovery from rehearsal that enabled Richard and me to see the overall gestalt of Chapter 3 in one distilled image. For those who want to see a drawing that gives the basic idea of the image, I've posted a sketch from my production notebook, which you can find in this episode's transcript on the podcast page of One Little Goat Theatre Company's website. I'll describe what led us to the image and then the image itself. Chapter 3 begins in a cloud, quote, "A poisoning volume of cloud barrage indeed," close quote. A spit fog, if you will, produced by the salacious and slanderous ballad of Perce O'Reilly that ended Chapter 2. And since Perce O'Reilly is a Gallicization of Earwicker's own name, Père Soleil in French is earwig, this toxic cloud that opens Chapter 3 is, perhaps, produced by Earwicker himself. Chapter 3 ends with rain, a rain preceded by its own cloud barrage of insults aimed at Earwicker in the form of 111 insults. So the beginning of Chapter 3 is inverted by the end. The fog of slander spat and sprayed out at the start transforms in the end into insults and rain falling on our sleeping protagonist. The toxic cloud in the beginning spreads out to many different people. The rain at the end falls down on only one. With this inverted precipitation in mind, the image Richard and I imagined for Chapter 3 looks like this. A man, HCE, spits up and out, only to have it rain down on him. Think of the image as the expectorating version of pissing in the wind. It's a reminder that every element in this epic fugue that is Finnegans Wake circles and cycles again and again. We are always reading, as the book's opening line tells us, quote, "a commodious vicus of recirculation." How could Earwicker ever escape the slander that hounds him when that slander may very well have issued from Earwicker himself? As the Bob Marley song we discussed at the beginning of Chapter 3 puts it, "You're running and you're running and you're running away, but you can't run away from yourself." Or to borrow a beloved phrase of my parents' generation, often attributed to Rod Serling's TV series The Twilight Zone, "We have met the enemy and the enemy is us." Maybe Earwicker ultimately is his own worst enemy. At the start of Chapter 3, we asked if Earwicker is purely victim or if he is also victimizer. My sense is that he's both. True, he's hard to identify at times, especially when, as this chapter warns us early on, quote, the shape of the average human cloudy fizz frequently altered its ego with the passing of the showers, whence it is a slopperish matter given the wet and low visibility to identify the individual, close quote. But identify him we have, and his name is H.C. Earwicker. There is no escaping that. In his final futile attempt to escape slander and confrontation at the end of Chapter 3, Earwicker locks himself up in a pub near Dublin's Phoenix Park, although this time rather than the Mullingar house on the south side of the park, which we usually associate with HCE and his family, it appears to be the hole-in-the-wall pub on the north side of the park, as the second sentence of today's excerpt indicates. This sentence also has a once-upon-a-time ring to it that echoes the opening line of Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Quote, there was once upon a wall, and a hoog wall a was, and such a wall hole did exist. Close quote. The very first sentence that opens today's excerpt sets the stage for Earwicker locking himself away and for the confrontational scene that unfolds soon after. It begins, quote, now by memory inspired. By Memory Inspired is an Irish ballad that pays tribute to heroes who died in the Irish Rebellion of 1798, suggesting confrontation. It also influenced W.B. Yeats's poem September 1913, which readers often relate to Ireland's labour strike of the same year known as the Dublin Lockout. In our case, Earwicker, having fortified the pub's front gate, is locked in, and his assailant, a version of the cad from the first confrontation in Chapter 2, is locked out. The attacker is a German newspaper reporter, Herr Betrefender, who bangs on Earwicker's gate for a couple of reasons. First, because he's writing a story on the central theme of our novel, the fall of humanity, or in the Wake's own words, Betrefender is, quote, making his reporterage on Der Fall Adams, close quote, and Earwicker certainly personifies that fall. The second reason, arguably more urgent, is that Betrefender badly needs a drink, even though it's 10 in the morning, threatening to pummel Earwicker if he doesn't serve him alcohol right away. Betrefender even blows some Quaker oats through Earwicker's keyhole in an effort to get his attention, but to no avail, so he ratchets up his assault by unleashing an exhaustive litany of 111 insults against our protagonist. The indignant and undignified list of epithets is a blast, and I won't spoil it for you. I'll just mention that my favorite insult is also the audience's favorite, as you'll soon hear from their laughter, and I'll hint that for those also peeking at the page, it's a one-word insult beginning with the letter A that you'll find on line 21 of page 71. Enjoy. Following this offensive barrage, Betrefender adds injury to insult by chucking some stones at Earwicker's pub/fortress. And there, the siege is over. Quote, came to close that last stage in the siegings round our Arcus citadel, close quote. Earwicker is finally by himself. As he settles into sleep, the dream language of Finnegans Wake conjures up an image of our protagonist as a hero returning, quite the opposite of the fleeing fraidy cat we've been following until now. In words that invoke the title of our book, quote, some fin avant, he skal wake from earth sleep, lost leaders live, the heroes return, close quote. This also invokes the Irish nationalist slogan, Sinn Féin awan, meaning ourselves alone. And Earwicker is indeed himself alone, at least until he is visited, a la Genesis, by God in an exchange reminiscent of biblical dialogue between the Almighty and Abraham. In Wake speak, Abraham becomes Alprahom, with all spelled A-L-L, as in everyone, a fitting pseudonym for our multifarious protagonist HCE, also known as Here Comes Everybody. Here, in this second-to-last paragraph of Chapter 3, God's voice disturbs Earwicker's sleep, and Earwicker responds grumpily in Latin. Quote, Anima diabolum mene credidisti mortuum? which translates to, "Sold to the devil, did you believe me dead?" A riff on the last line of the Finnegans Wake folk song that gives our book its title. By the thunder and Jesus, do you think I'm dead? It reminds me of the irreverent exchange in A History of the World Part 1 between Mel Brooks as Moses and the voice of God. In the movie, God calls down to his prophet in a booming, reverberant voice, "Do you hear me?" And Moses responds, "Yes, I hear you," followed by a short, sharp kvetch under his breath. A deaf man could hear you. Neither deaf nor dead, Earwicker is sleeping deeply. And now the rain falls. The rain that began this chapter in the latent form of cloud and fog as HCE's extremities seem to morph into Dublin itself, extending to 4 districts of the city. Finglas in the northwest, Pembroke in the southeast, Kilmainham in the southwest, and Baldoyle in the northeast, plus a 5th district, Rathfarnham, located south of them all. This last paragraph of Chapter 3 is, quite simply, a beauty. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So in Chapter 3, our protagonist reacts to slander, however real or perceived, however externally or internally generated, with more flight than fight. And now, at the end, with a third F response to threats, by freezing, or more specifically, by sleeping. Our fallen man has fallen asleep at the edge of Phoenix Park, where perhaps, and we can never say perhaps too often with Finnegans Wake, the ultimate book of possibilities, where perhaps, like the phoenix itself, he will rise again. Now it's time for Richard's performance of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, page 69, line 5, to page 74, 19, for the conclusion of Chapter 3. The performance was shot and recorded at my home in Toronto on October 2nd, 2023, with a live audience. The film will premiere in March of 2025 at the Toronto Irish Film Festival. The opening music is my own arrangement of By Memory Inspired, referenced in the first sentence of today's excerpt, with Brandon Bach on drums and Adam Seelig, yours truly, on piano.
Memory inspired, turn wheel again to the hold of the wall. Where giant blind fronts peon Luamore, there was once upon a wall, and a hoog wall it was, and such a wall hole did exist. There are aired in our Lund, or you dares here, or you digging mosses, or your hoard of arts and oriards, the garb of the garden of Odin, and the lost palladays when all the Adams ended with Aves. Amen. The Doon is theirs, and still to see from menacing if he strikes a louse for it, and we'll come to those bare gaze shoes if you just shut up a second. And let orgs be good old gaggers, and Ister Esther play Yaster Esther, in the dream of Sir Rest Asterius diseased. A stone-hinged gate then was for another thing, while the Sir Optimus had bought and enlarged that shack under fair rental of 1 yearling sheep, prime, value of 6pence, and 1 small yearling goat, cadet, value of 8pence, to grow old and happy, hogged and kid him, for the remnants of his years. And when everything was got up for the purpose, he put an applegate on the place, by no means as some pretext, a bedstead in lieu thereof to keep out donkeys. The pig dirt hanging from the jags to this hour makes that clear. And just then about's the iron gate, by cold custom left open to prevent the cats from getting at the goat, was triple padlocked on him on purpose by his faithful porters to keep him inside, probably and possibly an answer he felt like sticking out his chest too far and tempting gracious providence by a stroll on the people ad's egg day, unused as he was yet to being freely clodded. Oh, by the by, let's we brag of praties, and ought to be always remembered in connection with what has gone before, that there was a North rumour, heard that Defender out for his Zimmerhole digs, digging in at number 32 with the rum and punch, and brought to Dirty Dick's free house in Lax Slip, where the Sockeye Sammons were stabbing at the time orange fasting. Prior to that, a Commerzial, Gabordo Parker, he was reeking like Zentral oil rubber. From Ostrich, the USA paying, God save the mark, 11D a week. Gosh, these holy Romans of conscience money in the first deal of July while he was swishing business with Bless Shore and swabbing broken Irish with broken douche, making his reportage on there Fall Adams for the Franco-Fertile siding. A fastland paid ridicule, and there, considered at one hand on him the Lynn O'Brien, melt-on lamb's wood disturbed. And why do they mind the same sort as chicken other they would, with toes and about a sand ton of waters, one monkey's damages become? Now you must know, Franksman, to make a heart of glass, that the game of gaze and bandstand butchery was merely a patsy old strap tissue of threats and obuses such as Roebuck's Raffat and Pinnacle's Peak after this sort. Humphrey's unsolicited visitor, Davy or Titus, on a Bargley's clan march from the Middle West, a highly excellent crude man about road who knew his Bullfast mountains like a starling bird. After doing a long dance untitled to Cloudy Green, the posing is boxed up on the wake you may want me, after having blew some Quakers for you hoots into the house king's keyhole to attract attention, bleated through the gale outside, which the terror of his clothes was hard collaring. First, be the hair suitor, that he would break his bulgy wigger's head for him. Next, be the heel tapper, that he would break the gauge over his lanky duckling head the same way he would crack a nut with a monkey wretch. And last of all, be the stern abouter, that he would give him his, the umperums or any bloody else's, decadent water to drink and his bloody stepbrothers into the bucket. He demanded more wood alcohol to pitch in with, alleging that his grandfather's was all taxis, and it was only after 10 O'Connell, and his bar was a public oven for the sake of Erskoskuski, and then not easily discouraged, opened the wrath floods of his artillery and went on at a wicked rate, weathering against him in Mook's metaphors from 11:30 to 2 in the afternoon without even a luncheonette interval for house, son of Claude, to come out, you Jew beggar, to be executed on men. Dear Wicker, and pattern mine, that paradigmatic ear, receptor attentive essays of Dionysus, long-suffering, although whitening under restraint in the seated-out corner of his conservatory, behind famine-built walls, his thermos flask and a Rapidian flabelle by his side, and a walrus whisker bristle for a toss-pick, compiled, while he mourned the flight of his wild geese, a long list, now feared and part lost, to be kept on file of all abusive names he was called. We have been compelled for the rejoicement of fine ladies in the humours of Milltown, etc., by Josephine Brewster in the collision known as the contrastations with Inkerman, and so on and so onward. Lacey's in Luwater Flea, Celestial's one clean turve, first nighter, informer, old fruit, yellow wigger, wheat ears, goldy guide, bogside beauty. Yes, we've had his bananas, York's porker, funny face, a Baggety's bend he bumped, grease with the butter, open door auspices, Cain enabler, Ireland's eighth wonderful wonder, be my price, God's oilman, Moonface the murderer, Hardy hairy hogs, midnight sunburst, remove that Bible, hebdramadardy publication, Tomer the lame, the tyrannous, blow clay, tight before tea time. Rage our panta joke, acoustic disturbance. Thinks he's God blast, the good Duke of Argyll, WD's Grace, gibbering Behemoth of Dublin. His father was a Munzaker and she had him in a growler. Burnham and Bailey. Artist. Unworthy of the homely Protestant religion. Terry Cotter. You're welcome to Waterfoot, signed the Ribbon Men, Lobster Pot Lardling. All for Arthur of this town, hooshed the cat from the bacon, Leather Togs Donald, the A's and Dewes of Pauper, and O'Reilly's delights to kiss the man behind the barrel, Magogajog, Swad Puddleford, Gouty Gibberly, Loose Luther, Hatches Cock's Eggs, Muddle the Plan, Look before wedlock, I divorce thee, husband. Tanner and a Meg. Go to Helena or come to Connie's. Puff, puff, piebald his bride. Purged out of Burke's. He's none of me causing. Barbarian. Peculiar person. Grunt Owl's factotum. 12 months aristocrat. Lycanthrope. Flunky beetle vamps a tune letting on his lonely. Thunder and turf, married into Clondorf, left boot, sent on approval, Cumber of Lords, holy ground, Star Jarshman, Aunt Uke, Tommy Furlongs, pet plagues, Archduke and Cabinger, last past the post. Keneally won't tell the off Nancy's gown, scuttle the cover, salary grab, Andy McNeil in Annie's room, all out, Twitch Brat's bras, Bombard Street Bester, Sublime Porter, a ban for the King of the Bergens, and a ban for you sir of all the Rutledges, Ophelim's cut price, and at number 111, what he done to Castle Costello, sleeps with feathers and ropes. It is known who sold Horace the Rattler, enclosed find the sons of Fingal, Swaden is fallen, wants a wife and 40 of them. Let him do the fair. Happy G. Chimuk, ploup goes his wassail. Ruin of the small trader. He, milk and honey, beaver brooker. He was a vintner, sour rapes, a meaning atrocity, sick fish, belly up, Edomite. Man devoid of the commoner characteristics of an Irish nature. Bad Humbug, Grand Rab, Cuckoo Handler, Dirt. Mitch and Daddy, born burst feet foremost, Woolworth's worst. Easy-ethic philosophist, guilty pig's bastard. Fast in the barrel, bills in the bed, Mr. Fatmate, in custody of the Paulus, Bowles elocutionist, deposed. But anarchistically respectful of the liberties of the non-invasive individual did not respond a solitary wedge word beyond such sedentarity, though it was as easy as kiss anywhere for the passive resistant in the booth he was in to reach for the hello gripes and ring up Kimmage Outer 1767 because, as the fundamentalists explained, when at last shocked into speech, touching his wounded feelings in the Fuchs Yard, the Dominican mission of the Socialist Party was on at the time, and he thought the Romish devotion known as the Holy Rosary might reform him. Gone. That more than considerably unpleasant bullocky before he rang off drunkishly, pegged a few Gladstones all of a size by way of final max for his grapes, at the wicked in support of his words that he was not guilty, but after he had so strong a valet reconnoitring through his semi-subconsciousness, seriousness of what he might have done had he really polished off his terrible intentions finally caused him to change the ball and leave down all Grummas, Pebbles, Pang Pong. And having sobered up a bit, tastes his growled owl diablin lion dub, the flay, the phlegm, the floaty flesh, purse, purty first, I splish the splume of the bar. This backblocks boor brusquely put out his language and quite quit the paleologic scene. Telling how by yourself the night Norns he had left hiding under the setting table, after exhorting Wicker, or in slightly modified phraseology, Messrs or Messrs Wicker, sir, his feminizable name of multitude, come outside out of the muckaroo out of that for the honour of Crumlin, with this broody old flesh goods, God's curse to them, so as he could Brian slag and burst them all dizzy. You go bail like Potts Fracture did with Kettle Flatnose, and nobody at all with whole life famous, and Bill rocks over him, or if he didn't, for 32 straws be Campbell, he'd know what he wouldn't do for him, nor nobody else, no more nor him, after which, battle martel, a brisha miller stroke a boola, so the rage of Malbrook, playing on the least change of his Manchester's voice, the first heroic couplet from the Fugue Tropical, Opus 42, my schemes into abeyance, for this time has had to fall. They bid good bite to their thumb, and his bandolier his soldier, drip drop on pool or polger, right in the loft of Philadelphia in the morning, proceeded with a hobble forth slouch in his slips backwards, cool honey, in the directions of the duff and dim institutions about 10 or 1100 years lurch away in the moonshiny gorge of Patself on the Bach. Adio. And thus, with this Ratchily Exeter of Bullyacre, came come to close that last stage in the siegings round our archer citadel, which we would like to recall if old Nestor Alexis would wink the word for us, as Barla Duke, and Dog and Doris, and Bang and Op Zoom. Yet he may leave them many a door beside the Boxman's wall, for so witnesses chambered cairns, a cloudlet litter silent at arid brows uphill, and down Coombe, on Eolith or Stratton, at Howth or at Coolock, or even at Enniskerry. A theory none too rectilinear of the evaluation of human society, and a testament of the rocks from all the dead, and to some the living. Oliver's lambs we do call them, scatterlings of a stone, and they shall be gathered unto him, their herd and paladin, as nubilets to Cumule, in that day when, same the lightning lancer of Azave Arthur honoured, some Finn avant, he skal wake from earth's sleep, out crested Elmer, in his vale of briars of Greenman's rise, oh, lost leaders live, the heroes return, and o'er Dun and Dale the Wolver Rover Lord protect us, his mighty horn skal roll, Ireland roll. For in those days his death shall ask of all Prohome, and call to him, all Prohome. And he make answer, that's so, nor wink nor wonk. Anamadi Abelum, many creditist him, what's on? Silence was in thy faustive halls, O Ch03, when thy green woods went dry. But there will be sounds of many mirth on the night's ear ringing, when our patriarch of Cumstown the Noble gets the pullover on his boots. Liverpool, not a bit of it. His brain's cool porridge, his belt nassy, his heart's a drone, his bluid streams a craw, his puff but a piff, his extremities extremely so. Fangless, palm broke, chill blame and bald owl. Humph is in his doge. Words weigh no more to him than rain drips to Rathfern him, which we all like. Rain when we sleep, drops. But wait until our sleeping. Drain. Stops.
That was Richard Harte reading the end of Finnegans Wake Chapter 3, recorded live in Toronto on October 2nd, 2023. Join us for episode 16 when Richard begins Chapter 4 of Finnegans Wake. This podcast series is taking a short break between chapters to focus on the film production of future chapters, so please note that the exact date of the next episode's release is to be determined, and we'll then resume our fortnightly podcast releases every other Thursday. In the meantime, to be sure you don't miss the episode, why not follow or subscribe to this podcast? For more on One Little Goat's Finnegans Wake project, including transcripts of this podcast and the complete film of Chapter 1, visit our website at onelittlegoat.org. And to hear about upcoming performances and screenings, including the March 2025 screening of Chapter 3 at the Toronto Irish Film Festival, join our mailing list also on our website. One Little Goat Theatre Company is a non-profit, artist-driven, registered charity in the US and Canada that depends on donations from individuals to make our productions, including this one, possible. If you're able, please make a tax-deductible donation through our website, www.onelittlegoat.org. Finnegans Wake is made possible by Friends of One Little Goat Theatre Company and the Emigrant Support Program of the Government of Ireland. Thank you for your support. And thank you to the artists for this episode: Richard Harte, sound by William Bembridge, podcast production by Sean Rasmussen, stage management by Sandi Becker, directed by yours truly, Adam Seelig. Music arranged and performed on the piano by me with Brandon Bach on drums, and recorded at Sound Department in Toronto. A big thanks to our wonderful live audience of Sandi Becker, David Mackett, Andrew Moodie, Cathy Murphy, Nomi Rotbard, Arlo Rotbard-Seelig, Adam Seelig, Aaron Tucker, and Catherine Veneri. Thank you to everyone at the Irish Consulate in Toronto. Thank you to production consultants Cathy Murphy and Andrew Moodie, and to music consultants Warwick Harte and Kevin Kennedy. Thank you for listening.